Hey everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Today's guest is yet another one of these sensational new Canadians. He's actually been on the scene a couple of years, but he's getting better and better. This is Iain with an extra A, Valliere, joining us from Indiana, where he is getting ready to compete this weekend at the Indy Pro. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Hey, good, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So, I've been aware of you, sort of. I saw you when you turned pro. I saw the pictures in the magazines. I've seen you pictures in a couple of shows, but I don't know a lot about you, and I don't think most people do. So it's about time we change that. First of all, why is your name spelled with an extra A there?
It's an extra I, so I got the second I. So it's usually I-A-N. I've just got the I-A-I-N. It's a traditional Scottish Gaelic spelling. My mom's side of the family is very Scottish, so they threw in that extra I there just to play tricks on me for the rest of my life and have people say my name wrong. So
that's nice of her. So what was your childhood like? What kind of a kid were you? Were you into sports or other kind of hobbies?
Yeah, I was into sports. I ran track when I was young, so I ran the 1 and 200 meter. I basically did that right from elementary school right up through high school. That was really my thing. I was never a big team sport kind of guy. I dabbled in, soccer and football and those kind of things when I was younger, but they never really stuck for me like, the individuality of the track and field did.
So did you not pursue that any further because you didn't like it anymore, or did you just hit a wall where you didn't think you were going to be that level?
It's hard to say. I was still progressing every year. Do I think that I ever would have been, running the 100 meter at the Olympics for the Canadian team? Probably not. So I obviously had some genetic limitations. I think at that point I was getting into grade 12 or, leaving high school, and it was kind of like, I had a lot of friends that played football, so I was like, I'd rather do something like that, try and play with them, do something fun. But like I said, the team sports never really stuck for me, so that kind of is what led me into lifting more weights, right? So I wanted to play football with my buddies. I had the good speed from track, so I headed over to kind of that avenue, and then that led me to the lifting weights, which led me to building some muscle, and then kind of into the bodybuilding world. So it kind of was a transition there.
So when you started lifting weights, it was already with the goal of trying to get bigger and stronger, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I was a track guy, so I was fast, but I was 160 pounds, right? I was not a big boy by any means. Grade 11, going into grade 12, I wasn't a big guy. So I was fast. I had the speed, but I wanted to be able to keep up muscle wise with some of the bigger guys. So yeah, that was really my intent when I first headed into the gym, was just to put on a little strength, put on some muscle. So if that was something I wanted to keep doing, I could potentially play at a higher level.
Okay. And did you how did you first find out about bodybuilding? Was it a movie or a video or internet or somebody you saw?
I actually started working in Canada. We have a supplement chain called Popeye Supplements. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Of course I am. Come on now. I used to work for Muscle Mag.
Yeah, so I worked there when I was in my teens and early 20s. When I started working there, those guys, they're kind of the ones that introduced me into the bodybuilding world. They were the sponsor for the local. I come from a city called Ottawa in Canada. They were the sponsor for the local regional competition there that year, Popeyes. So when I started working there, I'd been working there for a bit, and I'd started to put on some muscle from, like I'd said, from the training for football. And these guys made the suggestion, why don't you, give this a run, and obviously I'd, seen the guys before, like the Ronnie Colemans and the Jay Cutlers. I knew about bodybuilding. I remember Ronnie had come out to Ottawa once to a Popeyes, and I went and saw him. But the picture of me standing next to him was hilarious. I must be 145 pounds, and I soaking wet. So
everybody looks like a little peanut next to that guy.
Yeah.
even some very big guys that I've seen next to Ronnie. So your first show, did you have any idea what you were doing? Did anybody help you with your diet, your posing, or did you do it all on your own and wing it?
It was kind of a bit of both. It was, I had a local guy named Freddie that had kind of helped me out initially, and there was, a local bodybuilder named Hassan Jama, who's a Canadian, national level bodybuilder in Canada that I'd kind of met around the gym. Then, and the guys at Popeyes, and I did what any rookie does, makes the mistake of listening to too many people. I didn't just, one guy told me to do this and stuck to that plan. I had, X, Y, and Z all telling me to do different things, and I kind of listened to a bit of all. Did I have a good showing for a first show? Yeah, I thought I looked really good, but was I doing? Yeah, exactly. Was I probably doing unnecessary, amounts of cardio and things like this that I probably really, I was eating, maybe 900 calories a day, no carbs, and doing 2 hours plus of cardio a day, which I clearly didn't need to get in shape, but it was just too much information. I just did it all.
I got to throw in there, while you mentioned Hassan Jama, he posts on the Muscular Development Noble Forum as Stunna, Stunna. So I want to give him a little shout out. I hope he's watching this, because he's actually somebody you competed against. He took second to you. What, the year you won the juniors, or was it when you won the?
No, so he's a few years older than I am. So the year that I went to Acapulco and won my pro card,
that's right.
So the competitors that Canada brought to that show were all the competitors who had recently done the Ontario Provincial Championships right before it. Because usually it would be qualifiers from a national level show, but that show was before the Canadian Nationals that happened that year, and they wanted to send some athletes. So the Ontarios was the only show that had happened so far, so that they sent the winner. So I had won the overall in this and won the super heavyweights. Hassan won the heavyweights. So they brought down two bodybuilders, Hassan and myself. And then I actually ended up cutting down to do the heavyweights in Acapulco and competed against him in that class, and he placed second to me in the heavyweights,
All right. Now I understand how you guys ended up down there.
But I mean, I've known Hassan for, 10 plus years. He was really, I remember when I started training back at the YMCA, he was, I thought this guy was the biggest human I'd ever seen in my life. You're 17, 18-year-old kid. This guy was, the biggest guy, and really someone I really looked up to, starting into bodybuilding.
So 2011, I don't know how old you were then, but you won the juniors, and you had only been competing. Was that like your second or third show?
Yeah, so it was my second year competing. So I did my first show 2010. That was that Ottawa, the regional show, and then I did the Ontario Provincials in June of 2011, and then I did the Canadian Nationals in September, October of 2011. So basically just all three in succession there, and one, two, three right after the other. Yeah.
So winning the juniors, that's a pretty big deal. If it's your age group for the entire country. What was it like? I mean, did people coming up to you and telling you about your potential, or what was the response from you, and how do you feel?
It was definitely an awesome experience. I met a lot of guys, and I think that was really what got my foot, into the bodybuilding door, where I started to meet, more people and get more information, stuff like that. I think really helped me. And it also just kind of, lit a fire under my ass. I think I realized more of my own potential, and that kind of drove me to continue with it after that. So, but I mean, back then it wasn't the social media driven bodybuilding fitness world like it is now, right? I mean, this is only 2011, which isn't that long ago, but I mean, this was just at the dawn of Facebook. There was no Instagram, this wasn't, the world of bodybuilding was, in the magazine world still, right? So the travel of information wasn't like it is now,
I think there was still a MySpace at that point.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Okay, so 2012. You got to tell me this story.
Yeah.
So this guy Devon Larat, 4-time world arm wrestling champion, he does some sort of charity exhibition in Ottawa, and you decided to arm wrestle this guy. And tell us about that fateful day.
Okay, so this was back to when I'm saying this is my Popeye supplements days. So I was working. It was an expo called National Capital Fit Day. So it was just a local fitness convention. I was working the booth for Popeye supplements at the event. At the event, they had a local arm wrestling championship, which Devin was commentating for. It was a small local televised thing. And then at the end of the event, it was like, he was going to arm wrestle 100 people in 100 minutes, or, set some kind of record for arm wrestling the most amount of people, or, so anyone could basically line up and go arm wrestle him. I'll say I had no delusions of grandeur that I was going to beat this guy in arm wrestling. I don't claim to be an arm wrestler. I got coaxed into it, being the biggest guy in an expo like that. Everyone's like, come on, give him a go. And, I was at my fate of peer pressure, and that one thing led to another. So
it was a spiral fracture of what, your humerus?
Of my humerus, yeah. So
I didn't post a picture, but you have a scar going from your rear delt all the way down to your elbow. So what the heck did they do to you to fix that thing?
So they cut it right open. I mean, I have a big, it's 14-inch long plate, and there must be 12 or 16 screws in there, and it was 60 staples down. So they cut me open good and put a big old piece of metal in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it set you back a little bit, but you made a full recovery, obviously.
I guess silver linings is it was bone and not soft tissue, right? If that had been a torn bicep or, something like that, it could have been a lot worse in terms of recovery time. We see guys, they detach, it never looks the same. It takes you months to recover. This was a bone. Bones heal, Pardon?
I got the tricep scar.
Yeah, exactly.
Reinforcement
So,
there.
I mean, you know what the recovery was like. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's never quite the same. I mean, this, you break a bone, I mean, it heals and you go on with your life, right? I mean, I know people that have had this surgery and have had complications. I've been lucky enough that, I mean, 6 weeks after the surgery, I got x-rays, the bone was fused, and I was like, well, I'm going to train. I was like, that's not going to break, so we might as well just start getting some weight on it. And I mean, I'd probably, you know, say that helped a lot with my recovery with it, is just getting back in, getting some, you know, weight-bearing exercise on it and helping the bone strengthen, loosen up all those tendons that had been in a sling for 6 weeks. You know, my arm was stuck at a 90-degree, right? So
Yeah. Well, so I want to remind everybody that you got your arm broken by a 4-time world champion arm wrestler. Poor
Yeah.
Victor Martinez. He was just some random dude in Mexico that yelled at him from, you know, as he was walking by.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
no, Devin, you can watch this guy on YouTube. Devin's insane arm wrestler. I mean, he's one of the best arm wrestlers in the world. He's a super nice guy. He's from Ottawa, where I live as well. He's a military guy. I mean, he's super nice guy, and you know, he felt nothing but awful about what happened, and he's reached out since, and you know, it's been good.
Good. So I read one interview where you talked about it, and you said it was kind of a blessing in disguise because it sort of made you change up your training in a way that ended up being more productive for you.
Well, you know, definitely, because at that age, I was still at the age was, you know, I was just slamming as much weights with terrible form, and I was just trying to PB every time I went into the gym, and, you know, I probably wasn't feeling proper contraction, half the muscles I was training. I was probably not getting the results out of the training that I was looking for. You know, once this happened, you know, I kind of slowed down my training a bit, at least for the first couple months after it, when I couldn't, you know, put the load on it that I was used to, you know, on some spots, especially like, you know, doing bench press or stuff like that, where there was a direct load on it, you know, and my chest has always been a weak point for me. So, you know, when I had to kind of go down, actually feel my pecs contracting and find different ways, you know, keep my scapula retracted and different things to, you know, kind of mentally focus on to isolate my chest without just throwing weight around, you know. So it definitely helped with that, yeah. So
I should back up in time. What body parts have always responded really well for you? Which ones have been more of a challenge for you?
I'd say my legs have always responded very well to training, coming from that track background. You know, my glutes, hamstrings, you know, those have always responded very well to training. You know, quads. My back it's come a long way. I mean, it was at one point, I'd say probably one of my weaker points, but it's probably made the most improvement. And, you know, my chest is, in terms of strength, is one of my stronger body parts. But like I said, I mean, that doesn't necessarily always translate to best in terms of look, right? So, you know, like I said, you know, getting a proper focus on that through different methods, right? So, you know, I'd say my legs and back are probably the ones that have developed the best for me.
So you were a little bit ahead of the time of the curve here, because now that the IFBB has basically split into two crazy different federations, now we're starting to see athletes from Canada and the USA go off to Colombia, London, all these places where they're going to be having IFBB Pro League qualifiers, and you know, you can go up against, it's probably going to be mostly local people in that area. But you know, you did this 4 years ago. I have to ask, when you and Hassan showed up as Canadians there, were all the South American and Central American guys kind of looking at you like, what are you guys doing here? How dare you?
Honestly, it was not. We were welcomed with open arms and then some. I mean, I felt like if there was ever a time in my life I felt famous, it was in Acapulco that weekend, you know? Because, I mean, I was, you know, I stood out there a lot, right? It was a lot of Latin American guys. I mean, even the contingency that Canada brought, you know, like I was the whitest guy there by far, you know? So, I mean, you know, and when I won the show, people, you know, really responded nice. I mean, I had lots of people taking pictures, and they were very, you know, very responsive to it. And they were just there. And I think the show that year, they'd actually made free to attend. So there was no charge. So in a city like Acapulco, where I don't think there's a ton of money, it was good. You got the fans in there, and they got to experience the bodybuilding. I think it was a really good event.
Okay. Now, I'm always honest with guys, and I tell them what I thought of them when I first saw them. When I first saw, I think it was Flex Magazine, had a page on the Amateur Olympia coverage.
Yeah.
I was not impressed with you at all. I said, this guy, oh my God, they're giving pro cards away to like. But a year later, I saw a picture of you from, was it Tampa or Orlando?
Orlando.
And you had packed on some really decent size in the space of a year, you know, kept your shape and proportions right. So what was that year like? You must have had some great training and put on, what was it about? It must have been like about 20-pound difference from pro card to there?
There was about 12 to 15 there. Yeah, I mean, it was just a year of a proper off season that I took seriously, right? Up to that point, like I'd had the injury with the arm, and things were a little rushed prior to that. So that was the first year I think I'd really taken an off season as seriously as I'd taken a prep, right? A lot of guys, and I mean, I still see guys do it, and I was a victim of it myself then. I'd go 120% in prep, and then the end of prep would come, and it was just like, I'd still train hard and I'd get my meals in, but it's not the same, You're not the same focus, the same drive, because you don't have an immediate goal in mind. And I think that was the first time that I was like, I'm a pro now. If I don't want to look like a fool up there with these guys, I got to really, keep this locked in all year round. And I think that made the difference for sure.
So when you won your pro card, I mean, I've heard this from a lot of guys, is they get this, like, not an overwhelming, a sense of being overwhelmed, but it's like, you are starting all over again, basically. It's like, well, now what am I supposed to do? When did you really sit down and think about where you had to go from there?
Like once I'd already competed as a pro, or when
I'm saying from when you won in Acapulco, now all of a sudden you're an amateur, and now you're a pro. It's a whole new world you just stepped into.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to figure out what your game plan was going to be, and when you wanted to make your debut and all that?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I once I'd done a bit of off season, then I just looked at the pro schedule when it came out, and I saw Orlando. The timing seemed right, and I didn't really think of it. I wasn't too intimidated at that point. I think it, really sunk in honestly more once I did my first pro show. Okay. And then you get there and you see obviously the caliber is drastically improved from what you compete as an amateur. And I was still happy with how I looked at my pro debut, but obviously the jump in I had looked okay in all my amateur shows and still blown everyone away. Where I looked even better at my pro debut and I came 7th, right? So right. I mean, I think that was the first time it really dawned on me. And then, also, it really, then again, I was, had to get back to work and improve even more, right? Which I've been trying to do since, 2014 or 15, whatever year that was.
So 7th place in your first pro show is not bad at all, but were you not very happy with that at the time?
I think I fell into the trap of social media. I was posting progress pictures and you got all your fans telling you, you look awesome, you're going to win. And, I didn't have that expectation going into the show initially. I was there just to, do my best. And, I was happy with how I looked. And then you get caught up in that a little bit, right? I'll admit it, I'll be honest, it's, and I had people telling me that, you could win this and, and then when you get there and you come 7th, it seems like a disappointment, but when you look back at it, in retrospect, I wasn't disappointed. No, I had my 20 minutes of pouting and acted like a baby. And then I kind of really realized, what I'd accomplished in that first show. And especially, and it was a relatively decent lineup, and how I looked and I was okay with it,
And it was won by I don't know if that's the best you ever looked, maybe the Arnold that year. Fuadu Abiad, another guy from Ontario. Looked spectacular at show.
Yeah, he did. That was a good showing for him. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So, how did you meet this? You've been with Melissa Bumstead. People probably know the last name. Figure Pro. Yeah. Has a younger brother. People might know. You've been together for 5 years. How did you two get together?
Yeah. Through mutual friends. I mean, we went to high school actually at the same high school.
Oh, really?
But we were from very, very different social circles. So, we kind of had some mutual friends, but we never really dabbled in the same social circles in high school. So if you'd said our names to each other, we would have known who we were, but we never intermingled or, really had conversations during high school. But a few years after high school, a mutual friend, a girlfriend of hers, a friend of mine, just kind of connected us going out one day, and I mean, one thing led to another, and here we are 5 years later. So,
yeah, how old are you? I didn't ask how old you are, sir.
I'm 27.
Oh, you guys are so young. Oh my goodness. So when you started dating her, Chris would have been like 17, 18.
Yeah, he was in grade 11. He was like grade 10, just going into grade 11 of high school, I believe, because we kind of started hang out like September maybe. So he was just starting grade 11, yeah.
Because I've interviewed him a few times, and he always mentions a big part of why he got into bodybuilding was my sister started dating this bodybuilder named Iain Valliere, and that was, how soon was it that you were dating before he started asking questions or, looking for some kind of guidance?
He was clearly had the interest before I came along. I mean, if you saw what this guy, I mean, you could go on his Facebook or Instagram, he probably has old photos, what he looked like in high school. he don't look like no normal 17-year-old. Okay? This is the Bumstead genetics. This kid has looked crazy since he was, since he picked up a weight for the first time, right? I mean, him and his sisters, both their response to training is incredible, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can see pictures of him with his friends when he's 17. I mean, you're like, what is this 30-year-old, men's physique guy doing hanging out with a bunch of kids, So, I mean, he always kind of stood out, and, he was into lifting weights in a minor amount then. I think, really seeing me and maybe coming to some competitions and dabbling in that world a bit, kind of got the interest peaked in him a little bit, so.
Now, you guys are you regular training partners?
Well, he just moved back to Ottawa, so he was living in the east coast of Canada for a while in Nova Scotia. So obviously then, I mean, no, we weren't. But now that he's back in Ottawa, yes, we do train quite frequently. And honestly, I train with his sister. We live together, obviously, so we train together quite often as well.
Okay. So you haven't been on stage since 2016, is that right?
Yeah, 2016, yeah.
So what was 2017 all about for you? What were you working on? What were the goals?
I mean, everything. I mean, I was, I just needed to grow, I mean, I after my last couple of showings in 2016, I mean, I was just getting to the point of where I was over dieting and I was lighter and lighter every show. I could just tell my muscle wasn't at that maturity point yet where I could diet for multiple shows yet and hold on to my tissue successfully, Yeah. So I just thought, I need to just take some serious time, put on some serious muscle that I can diet hard and hold on to, some real mature, dense tissue. Yeah. And I kept doing that until I thought I was ready. I mean, if it had taken 5 years, I would have taken 5. I mean, I was in no rush. I mean, I didn't set a date in mind of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I kind of had a look and a weight, look like this at so many pounds, kind of, be at this percent body fat at 280 kind of thing. I kind of had a goal in mind, and then once I hit it, then I thought I would be ready to, at least give another crack at it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because Hani Rambod used to always talk about that, is new muscle is harder to keep when you diet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And looking, I had to scroll through, do my little research on you. I saw so many pictures from your off season where you just look so big, thick, and full, and then there'd be like a contest picture in between there, and I'm like, what happened to this guy? And then again, there'd be pictures from later on. You're big again, just up and down, but now I think it is sticking.
Yeah, so that's a big thing. I mean, even now, like, even though I do have a lot more tissue, for me, I have a crazy metabolism. I need to eat like a horse, especially when it gets those last couple of weeks to really hold on to that fullness and that muscle, right? I mean, if I look back at pictures of me, even from 2016, when I'm talking about holding on, I would be show ready at 6 weeks out, and then I would just get smaller. Like there wouldn't be very little improvement in my conditioning, and I'm trying to eat as much as I can to hold on to the size, and I just keep getting smaller and smaller without even improved conditioning. So this time we kind of took a slower approach. Didn't want to be too ahead of the game. Hold on to all the tissue, and really just take a different approach to it.
So we'll talk about your current coach in a second, but I want to know, have you had other coaches, or have you been doing this on your own up until now?
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, the first couple of shows I had, Hassan helped me and those kind of guys, and then I worked with a Canadian bodybuilder, Greg Doucette, if you know who he is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So he's from the East Coast of Canada. He's a 212 pro. Yep. He helped me for the shows up till I turned pro. So the when I started competing, not as a junior, so 2013, 2014, the year I turned pro, he helped me for those contests. So he helped me turn pro. So I'll give him the props for that, Greg. Yeah. And I think I still attest my best conditioning to date, or my best showing to date with Greg. I mean, that was 2013 Ottawa show. I think was my best. For what I had at the time was my best. Yeah. And then I worked with Dennis James for my rookie season, so Orlando and Toronto Pro, where I placed 7th and 5th.
Yep.
That first year I was working with Dennis, and then I've been working with Matt Jansen ever since.
Yeah. So how'd you hook up with Matt?
That's a good question. I mean, that's probably through the world of social media. I seen him, and at the time he was working with Dallas. Some other younger guys that I kind of related to more. Right. I was a younger guy, and I didn't. I wanted also someone that I thought could relate to me. In my era and generation, and someone also that wasn't so bogged down with, at the time. I mean, Matt has lots of super high competitive clients now, but at the time, someone that could also give me the attention that I thought I needed, not someone, that has 200 clients that's, and I'm not a top pro winning shows yet. And then I'd kind of be on the bottom of their roster and the bottom of the radar, I kind of need to come in and, have a little more, time spot that I needed because I needed that attention to improve. At least that's where my mindset was at the time.
So I know Matt doesn't just do the diet portion. He's big into the training also, because he was always training with Dallas like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I think from your Instagram, have you trained with him some as well?
Yeah. So Chris and I actually went down, spent a week there. That would have been January or February. And I've gone down there, spent a week there before, in a previous prep. So, we've got some good time. I've gone down to Knoxville, down to Tennessee and trained with him for it's 2 weeks in total. Yeah.
Yeah. And, what's it like? What's it like training with him as opposed to on your own? What's different?
You don't ever want to look like a pussy, you go way past the point. Like, I train on my own and I think I train hard. I mean, I give myself, I'll give myself on the pat on the back and say that I train pretty hard. And, I'm sure everyone says that, but when you go and train with a guy like that, you're pushing yourself past that limit and, that you ever thought you were capable of, I mean, it's just, the intensity of training. I mean, you've seen the videos of him in Dallas training. I mean, these guys just obliterate themselves, And I mean,
Chris said the same thing about you. He said he gets better. He knows he trains harder with you than he does without you.
Exactly. So, I mean, we all have that person that drives them and motivates them, and just the atmosphere of being around Matt, I mean, really, really motivates me to train at my absolute best.
Now, you're also a prep coach, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So how did you get into that? And, what are the ups and downs of it? What's the cool things about it? And what's the more challenging things about being a prep coach?
Yeah. I mean, the cool parts of it are obviously, seeing people like Chris and Melissa and their success, right? I mean, that's been super cool to be a part of that. I don't take on any other pro clients other than those two. I stick to really just taking on amateurs, national level or lower. I don't do the pro clients much.
Yeah.
There's obviously times, and especially this upcoming Toronto Pro, we have a Canadian amateur show there as well. It's
right.
The CPA Pro. It's a pro qualifier now. Actually, that's open to Americans as well. I think it's international. But I mean, shows like that, it's a hardship now that I have 25 clients doing that competition. So for me to try and compete at the Toronto Pro, it's like, I'd really like to do it, but you got responsibilities in that aspect. And I know I couldn't be at my best and also try and manage that. So, there's things like that. You got to, manage those battles and, so pick different shows and, it's that can be tough.
Well, you just explained to me, I was going to ask you, why aren't you doing the Toronto Pro? It's probably like a 45-minute drive from your house.
It's my favorite show. I mean, I love it. Ron Hash puts on a great show. I mean, I love being there every year, but I mean, I love being there and not competing as well. So, I mean, I get to see all my, fellow Canadian competitors and, work the booth there and lots of people I know come by and, get to see all my clients compete and stuff. So, I mean, it's fun. And Melissa and Chris, Chris competed there last year. Melissa competed as well before. So, it's always good to be there and help them as well. So,
I mean, just the fact that so many of your friends and family can go to the show because they don't have to fly anywhere. It's not really.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when Chris won last year, my God, the roof almost came off that convention center.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you've ever watched like Zane Watson. When Zane Watson competes there, it's like the craziest riot you've ever heard. He steps on stage and the whole place is just like freaking out.
He took a whole bus came down to Ohio from Toronto. He's from, right?
Yeah, I think he's from around their area. I don't know the exact area, but somewhere in the greater Toronto area, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, he literally, like you said, has a busload of people come down, and they're chanting his name. Like, it's awesome to watch. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
So, well, you're going to be a very busy guy that weekend. You're going to be way too busy to compete.
Yeah.
I applaud you for doing that because it would be pretty selfish of you to compete and and these people wouldn't get the attention at all.
And I know that. So I mean, impossible. And I mean, they would both suffer. They'd suffer, and I'd be stressed out about them, and then I'd suffer, and they would just be suffering all around. And I'd have a bad showing, and they'd have bad showings. And I mean, at that point, there's just let's do one, do it right, and I think that's what I owe more responsibility to. So
okay, so Indy Pro, how did you pick this show? And is there a series of shows you have in mind, or is this it until whenever?
I'm going one show at a time. I mean, I'll see how this one goes. I'll see where my mindset is after this one. I'd like to do more shows. I mean, if the timing works out, I'd be looking at maybe California after this. We kind of see, it depends what the timing is. New York, I'm doing a guest posing at Fouad Abiad's show, actually, right. Which is the same weekend. So, I mean, that's kind of out, and then Toronto's out. So, it would kind of fall maybe California, maybe Vancouver, something a little after that, June, July. But how did I decide on Indianapolis? I don't really know. It was a new show. It was just something different and new and fresh. And this was me coming back after a couple of years, and I just wanted it all new and fresh. Just in my head, it felt like it was all just a fresh start. Come back to a new show and maybe see a different lineup of guys. You do the same shows. You go to New York Pro every year. You see the same guys every year. For the most part, you'll see the De La Rosas and Juan Morales. I mean, you see the same guys, right? So I just wanted a fresh set. Fresh new physique with a new, venue and a new thing. I just wanted it all fresh and new, Yeah,
and I mean, Toronto Pro, I've only been to it once last year, but, they announce where everybody's from. And I swear, half, all the divisions, I swear, at least half of those people were from Ontario. At least half of them.
Absolutely,
So I guess it's good to get away from home and see some fresh faces.
Exactly, yeah.
So what are we going to see this weekend, that we didn't see in 2015 and 2016?
Hopefully a lot more muscle, the fullness, the size that, I've lost in those last weeks. Definitely improved, from the back. Backs come up a lot, hold that fullness in the chest that I definitely lose a lot coming into the show. So, I mean, overall, it's just going to be a bigger, fuller, rounder physique, I think, We're trying to, conditioning has always, been a strong point for me. I can always get super peeled, but I mean, being super peeled at, 225, 230 pounds doesn't mean crap anymore. When there's guys the same height as me that are, that are 250 plus. So, I'll be in that, in that range and hopefully be more competitive, right?
Right. So, you talk about social media. I think it's actually helped in a way because, for so long, California, that dominated the world bodybuilding scene because that's where the magazines were. That's who you saw. And we didn't hear about a lot of Canadians, but now, the past few years, Pekulski's done so well, Fouad's done so well. Obviously, Chris has done amazing. Zane is coming up too. Now you, I mean, do you feel like every time I've been talking to the guys from the UK, there's a big surge coming out of there now. Sure. I feel like the same thing is kind of happening with Canada, where there's so much new talent starting to come out of there. Do you feel that way? Absolutely.
I mean, you look at the contingency of young guys coming out of Canada, like you said. I mean, you got guys like Chris, Regan, these guys who are all, I mean, huge potential talents, right? So, I mean, yeah, I definitely see that, in the next couple of years that, the Canadians, especially these young guys, are really going to make an impact,
So I want to ask you, what are your goals? What do you want to do this year and beyond? Where do you want to ultimately see yourself in the sport, in the business world, all that with the industry?
That's a tough question. Obviously, from a business standpoint, I run a successful business with my clients. I don't want to continue that, keep improving as a coach myself, and keep improving, learning, that's obviously important so I can, further help my clients. From a competitive standpoint, just continue to get better. I've had some showings where I feel like I regressed, or there was things that I did better at other shows and I, came in lighter, things that I shouldn't have gone backwards, as long as I keep moving forward and, learn from the things like, Vancouver Pro, and Toronto Pro previously, what we made mistakes there and improve and continue to improve. I think my placings will reflect that, and as long as I'm improving and people are seeing that, and I'm seeing that, that's enough for me. I don't have goals of, winning an Olympia as much as I'd love to. I don't think that's a realistic thing for me to make it to an Olympia. Absolutely. That's a goal for me. Yeah. To win a show, or whether it's qualifying points, man, I'm not picky, Yeah. I mean, with how little shows there are now and the talent of guys, I mean, anything like that is a win in my books, So, that's really where I'm at this year. Be as improved as I can from the last time I stepped on stage. And then after that, I mean, make it to an Olympia one day. Yeah.
Yeah. No, very, very reasonable goals. I mean, and, qualifying on points, I don't think there's any dishonor in that. It's still, you've had to go to a bunch of shows and still beat a lot of people to do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you get to the Olympia stage, no matter how you get there, unless it's like some crazy.
Man, if I'm there, I'll be grinning ear to ear just to be there, and I'll have the best day of my life. So I mean, I'm not worried about how I get there. You know.
All right, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're already on location in Indiana.
Yep.
What's today? Wednesday, and you go on stage not till what, Saturday, right?
Yeah, we got pre-judging Saturday morning and finals that same evening. Yeah.
Man, what the heck are you going to do for 3 days?
Relax and get better.
Right on. Perfect. Fill out. I'm glad we did this. I know a little bit more about you. I'll be watching. We're all going to be watching. See what the new and improved Iain Valliere looks like. I have a feeling you're going to surprise some people. I really do.
Hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much. And to those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe and click the little bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Thank you all for watching the Ronline Report with Ron and Iain Valliere.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Good stuff.